Is Sarina Schafer and the colleagues. Thanks a lot, Sarina.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm Sarina, and I'm actually going to talk about something different than I talked about in Sydney. So I'm going to present results from a behavioral game that we used to model dynamic contact effects. And first of all, I want you to meet Parsi. And Parsi, in his small two-dimensional world, is a member of a group. And not surprising to all of us, there are also other groups in Parsi's world. And most of the time, Parsi sits at home and thinks about other things like food, he likes apples, and money, things like that. But then Parsi, like each and every one of us, has to go out for work, takes a bus, and at the bus station, he meets a red person. And we don't know anything about that. Is it a positive or a negative interaction? Well, we don't know, but on the bus, again, out-group contact, and we know that work is really important for that, so you get the clue. And then at night, Parsi's back home thinking about apples and money. But lucky for us, Parsi has a phone. And so what we usually do, and you've heard talks from Ollie and Matthijs and all that kind of research we actually usually do, we pay someone to call Parsi and ask him, how often do you have positive contact with red people? Or how often do you have negative contact with red people? And I don't have to tell you that, but we actually learned a lot from these kind of questions, right? We do know that there's an in-group bias. We do know, thanks to the great work of Fiona, that balance of the intergroup contact matters. And we do know, thanks to Katrin's work and Steffi's work, that thereby the interaction of positive and negative might make a difference. So that is what we're building on in our research, and our study was pre-registered. So we thought that actually these questions that we're posing so far might be a bit difficult for Parsi to answer. You remember, he had all those different kind of interactions. So maybe there is more to intergroup contact than overall ratings of balanced contact. So what did we do? How could we model repeated balanced intergroup contact in the lab? First of all, you have to get Parsi into the lab. And we do that with his fellow students, which is not so easy at a distance learning university, but we managed. And then we reminded Parsi and his fellow students that they actually belong to two very important groups, which is younger and older students. So we reminded them of their age groups, and then we told them, you're going to play a prisoner's dilemma. I'm not going into that. You should all know that from your basic psychology training. And then you're going to play that prisoner's dilemma over several rounds, but always with someone new. And you're going to play some rounds with your own group and some rounds with someone from the other group. And you will notice that because your screen will turn blue as soon as you're playing with someone from the other group. And each round we asked our participants, how much do you expect from the other group? Yeah, expectations. And then what would you like to send to the other person, which is real behavior cooperational measure in that, because they're actually getting money out of that, yeah? So that's the basic data structure from what we got out of that. That's 17 rounds, and I'm zooming in a bit to give you a better idea. So each round you would have in the middle, that's the expectations, and we predicted that expectations would predict the cooperation. And then we added the quality of the previous round to that. And quality was computed by subtracting the expected amount from the received amount. So If you expected more than you received, you would end up with a negative measure on that, or the other way around. And then just to make it a bit more complicated and to address the idea that history of contact might make a difference, we added the mean quality to up to the round before the previous round, right? So that is a measure that is actually changing for each round, but represents all of your previous experiences with the respective group. We also ran that for the overall sample and stuff, but maybe we can save that for coffee later because we only have 7 minutes here. So that's the data structure if you now only look at intergroup interactions, and we used those amazing new models from the dynamic structural equation modeling, which can accommodate for autoregressive as well as subject-specific effects, which is important if you have so many repeated interactions, right? So just coming back to what we assumed we would find, we do find an in-group bias. We do find that valence of the intergroup contact matters. And we do find that the interaction of positive and negative might make a difference. And I think this is now the exciting slide that's plotting the interaction. And as you can see, contact quality from the previous round has the strongest effect on expectations with a positive history. And the effect is less intense with a negative history. So what you find is if you want to interpret that, if you have really high positive expectations and these get violated, you get the worst outcome. But if you already had negative experiences and you then have a not so good experience, that is not as bad, but also the positive doesn't then change your attitudes so much. So what is also interesting to tell you here is that these interactions are specific for intergroup contact. While we do find a basic experience then on expectations effect for the in-group too, we don't find the interaction. And yeah, so our results fit to what would be expected from findings regarding impression formation and violations of expectations. And we run a small additional study with the same paradigm where we actually asked for perceived contact quality in between. We didn't want to have that in the first sample because it kind of breaks the flow of the game, which is they get really angry if they don't receive a lot of money. And so we can show there that perceived contact quality is a possible explanation. And yeah, and just to point it out, this is a focus on small scale interactions, and large scale surveys might find different results. So thank you.
You do touch on the mapping with the real world, the kind of experiences. We did play with the money games as well in our lab. And I was just wondering whether this is like a minimal group paradigm. I just was wondering about the calibration of their expectation based on their own competitive history. We did find some effect in our work. Yeah. I'm just curious, your feeling about the paradigm and yeah, the mapping with the real world.
Yeah, it's a really important question. It was really stunning to see the students. They were like, oh, that is so obvious. You want us to give more to our own group than to the other group. And then we looked at the results and we found a very obvious in-group bias. So that was interesting. And also like, actually the people coming out of the lab, like I said, they were really, really angry. There were people like yelling at each other. Were you the person that never gave money? How could you do that? It's so obvious you have to cooperate all the time. But on the other hand, we tried to implement that setting online, and it didn't work. And it didn't work because of too many strategic players. So I think really having that group experience is something important in using that paradigm. Yeah.
More question for Sarina? Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Sarina. I was actually wondering if you modeled the previous experience, would that be group specific or would it just be the overall history? Because especially if you say, you know, people get more and more angry, then that's an additive effect of, you know, both the in-group and the out-group experiences, right?
Yeah, but we tried both, and you find the moderation for the intergroup interactions only. And I tried like all possible. We ran overall interactions, we ran out-group only, we ran in-group only, and you find the interaction for in-group only. And actually my explanation for that is, like I said, it fits really well to what we expect from findings regarding impression formation and violation of expectations, which is usually only looking at interaction with one person. And I think my explanation is that the outgroup is just perceived more to be like one person-ish, right, than the in-group.
Thank you, Sarina.
Thank you so much.